Welcome back around to theCUBE's live coverage here at RSAC 2025 here. Day 4, the show is really many voices, one community is the theme, but we're getting all the vibes here in theCUBE. Jackie McGuire is my co-host, Dave Vellante, John Olsick. Ryan's here, Chief Product Strategist, Axonius. Ryan, we were just riffing on camera before we came on camera about your role as a CISO, now Chief Strategist at Axonius. Big fan of the company. I've interviewed Dean, you did the conference, small conference, but you guys are growing very, very fast. Love the team, love the action. Thanks for coming on theCUBE.
No, thanks for having me. It's good to be here.
I love the CISO perspective because you can talk now. With your other jobs, you didn't have you had a lot of PR. Security is very tight-lipped. No one's really going to get on camera and say, here's what our strategy is. But as a CISO, a lot of the conversations here is, I want to simplify. I want complexity's high, AI's here, they see value, but I still got to maintain my security. You can hear about red teams on LLMs. You start to see models, apps, infrastructure all being looked at. What is the mindset of the CISO right now? Your fellow brethren in the industry who are at home, systems thinking around what they got to do. What is it, in your view, what's the current state of the mindset of the CISO right now?
Yeah, I'll tell you this, the CISOs I've talked with this week, and I'm still fairly new from that role, out of that role, so I can speak as a
still shaking off the trauma.
CISO. Yes, recovering CISO. But the ones I've talked to this week is there's excitement around the possibility of AI. I think there's some apprehensiveness still with it. A couple things. When you walk the floor, you see so many vendors, and we kind of talk, I don't know if it's exciting or if it's depressing, because there's just so many vendors and so many tools and so many solutions, yet every year it grows, but we're not getting better. Teams aren't getting better, right? Our jobs are getting harder as CISOs. Our environments are becoming more complex, and so I would say we don't need more tools. We just need to use the tools we have better. We need more clarity, we need more confidence in the tools we have. And so the CISOs I've talked with this week, that's been a message that I've heard from them. The other one is budgets are highly constrained. I think if your budget isn't, if you're not being asked to give some money back this year,
yep.
I think you're being asked to hold flat and push expenses into the second half of the year. And so, how can you do more with less or do more with what you already have? And I think this is where the platform game comes in, where we've got to use the tools to a fuller extent, the tools we have, because I can't go buy new tools. I don't have money for new tools.
Is the cost challenge just a macroeconomic factor, or is it the complexity and let's do some more thinking around how to efficiently run things? What's the cost driver pressure, in your opinion?
Yeah, I think it is macro, just kind of what's happening right now with uncertainty. Talking to friends in consulting, I know consulting has been challenged right now. People are holding projects to the later half of the year, that sort of thing. But I think it's also giving us an opportunity, or giving CISOs an opportunity to really evaluate their spend and how do I maximize my spend in a super intelligent way to get the most for my money.
Well, in 2021 and 2022, like the whole malware panic, I heard the term unlimited budget so often from security teams, because everybody was like, it could be an existential crisis for us. It was something where it was like, it was easier to spend that money. And I think now, we were talking about this, there's been this explosion of kind of like hyper-segmented security products, and now we're like, okay, we spent all of this money on all of these different tools, but we aren't achieving better outcomes. So I think we're kind of in the trough of disillusionment for security spending right now. I also imagine some of that money's being reallocated to AI projects, right? So
what I've seen, it certainly is.
Yeah.
It's being reallocated. But you're right in a sense, 21 especially was a really heavy year of spend, right? Kind of unlimited budget. CISOs got a lot of what they needed, but 4 years on from that, they're being asked hard questions like, what did that money get us? And it's at times hard to justify the ROI on the spend.
Yeah, it's like 4 times the log volume. That's what it got us.
Let's talk about Axonius. Dean and I had a great chat at NYS. You guys had a great conference. You're the product strategist. Given that you have the CISO perspective fresh in your mind and body, what attracted you to Axonius? Because you were a customer, before you're a customer, probably a skeptic. Everyone's got the best, I got the best solution. It's going to change the game, it's going to move the needle. You hear that a lot, right? So you're now on board. Take us through, what was the thing that attracted you to Axonius?
I love telling the story. So it was around 2020, and my team at Costco at the time came to me and said, hey, we have this new tool, we need you to sign this contract. And I think it was like day 3 for me as a CISO there. this tool is going to fix everything, and it's called Axonious. And my first question was like, how do you spell it? What does it do? I don't understand. You know, I've heard this so many times. This is the tool to rule them all. But it was interesting coming from my team, so I started to really work with some trusted advisors that knew the solution well, and they all had the same feedback as, no, it's the real deal, it really is good. And so we went ahead and became customers, and I saw what it did for my teams both at Costco and Disney, and it was really transformative. It was, you know, I say there's 4 or 5 tools that I have to have as a CISO, and that is one of them. It's one that I really love my teams to use, and it was totally transformative. So when the time came, and I no longer wanted to be a CISO, and thought about joining a product company, when I met with Dean, I was already a fan of the company, the tech, the problem space they're going after. I mean, the addressable market, it's so foundational for security. It's really what I built my programs on. And then the opportunity to not be a CISO, but yet work with CISOs and be the voice of the customer back to guide the roadmap of our product was just it was too compelling to miss.
Great story, and that's a great success story because that's a great kind of transition. You get to get best of both worlds. I have to ask you, one of the things I was impressed with, Jack, I'd love to get your take too because you were at the conference. I couldn't make it, I really wanted to be there, was this whole AI way is all about best next action, right? And the idea that actions, you guys have that approach into the philosophy is huge. And that comes up a lot in the agent conversations.
Yeah.
You know, automation's been around, but you know, generative automation, non-deterministic is a big part of the security, kind of figuring things out, but there's still some use cases. What this action thing is really relevant. Talk about what's the secret sauce of Axonious? What's the magic? Is it action? Is it the breadth of asset, looking at the assets? I mean, what is the key? Can you share?
Let's get nerdy.
Yeah.
Let's get nerdy. So, first degree psych, right? So we were talking neurology. So an axon is the thing that actually carries the electricity down the nerve cell into the cells, right? So Axonius, I assume, is supposed to be like the string running through your entire architecture that carries the signals in and out, right? And what I tended to find, I don't know whether it's alert fatigue in the SOC, right? You've got 10,000 untriaged alerts, or there's so much to do, is that teams get stuck in analysis paralysis. So yeah, I think to John's point, like how impactful was it for you to actually have a recommendation for what to do, not just being told something's wrong?
Yeah, highly impactful, first of all. I think you've heard this from security practitioners for the last several years, is don't just highlight my problems for me, don't just tell me, don't go find more vulnerabilities, because I don't have more people to throw at those and knock those down. Like, help me take action, help me get better. And you know, that's been Axonious' approach now, is we want to help empower security teams to solve problems, not just highlight problems. And so what my teams have done, and what I've heard our customers, they want to integrate everything into Axonious. They're starting to use Axonious as their source of truth for kind of all things. And just walking around here, I've had Axonious shirts on, and I'll get stopped, and they'll say, hey, we're trying to figure out how we can get, you know, XYZ integrated into Axonious. And it's the power of these 1,200 plus connectors that we've built, where we can kind of connect into any application, any system. And if we can't, we'll build one really quickly so we can, to help customers. And I think customers are finding just the power behind that, and so it's been fantastic.
It's like the AI ground truth.
Yeah. One of the interesting things you guys really help with is a thing I think is not often talked about, but license creep. So you guys help figure out what products are you using and how much you're actually utilizing of those products. And cynically, this is coming up, I think, and going to come up a lot more, because I've had a couple CISOs the last few days talk about using other people's budgets for things. So I think that's also happening in security, is that somebody will find this great security tool from your networking team or your IT team, and all of a sudden your license is really skyrocketing. So as a CISO, how big of a problem is that for you, in terms of like, we're not using the licenses we have, or we're using way more than we budgeted for?
Yeah, so my approach was always, how can I be most efficient? And I heard this yesterday, we're delivering pizzas. We don't need to deliver them in a Ferrari, right? And I love that. It's like, we can deliver them in a Chevy and the pizza still gets there.
That's Bay Area culture.
Yeah.
It's like your DoorDasher's driving a Range Rover.
And I love it because that was always my approach. Is like, hey, look at the tool sets we have. Are they good enough to accomplish what we need to accomplish? And if so, let's leverage them to their fullest extent. And so I think we're seeing teams take that approach with their tool sets. Axonious certainly helps, and this is a use case of like, let's go out and look at the software we're actually, or look at the licensing that we're actually using, because we're paying for 10,000, we're only using 6,000. There's some cost savings there, and so we do have kind of this cost efficiency play behind it as well that we're seeing security teams starting to use, as well as IT teams.
You know, we were talking on our intro security analysis for the show, Jack and I were talking about the culture change and vibes. Vibe coding, we could vibe marketing, she's a vibe analyst, I call her. Vibes is culture, is about harmony, and one of the things that comes up, you mentioned team, harmony amongst team, whether it's inside the company and outside, has been a big thing. What's your view on that? Because again, you're fresh off working with teams, you mentioned teams. How are the teams in this kind of vibe culture around missions, shared successes?
I think
you guys are trying to get
trust.
Yeah, talk about what you're feeling on that.
Tools, right?
Yeah, yes, certainly. I think shared mission is important. You talked about shared mission, and I think I talked a little bit about that in Dallas when I spoke. Is, you know, how do we create more shared missions across our partnerships, our stakeholders in the company, where it's not security teams succeeding or failing in a silo, like, you know, I'm security and I'm going to succeed with or without you. But how do we build consensus and excitement around shared mission with IT teams or with finance teams or whomever? And so there's a few platforms out there that do that, and I think, you know, in this case, Axonious is one of them, and I kind of give this example is, our IT teams love us as well because of licensing and asset visibility and all these things that we do really well, and it makes security's job a lot easier. And so I always encourage security teams like, hey, bring in your IT partners. And we're actually finding, I heard a story last night, they said, hey, the CIO got a hold of Axonious and pulled it from me, and now the CIO owns it, you know? And I'm like, oh, that's fantastic, right?
Word gets around fast.
We had one of your customers, Kara, on from TransUnion, and we actually coined the term Axonious as an olive branch.
Yeah.
Because that's a really great way to build olive branches into the other teams, is to provide the value that Axonious is providing to security to those teams. Because a lot of times there's a contentious relationship there, right? And so I love, that was like one of my favorite things from the whole conference, was Axonious as an olive branch.
I love that, I'm going to take that.
Dave and I were riffing on the CUBE
That'll be
pod.
$3,000.
Dave and I were, you'd appreciate this, Jackie. Dave and I were riffing about the security's not the no team, it's the go team.
Yeah.
It used to be like, hey, no, hold on, where's the guardrails, AppSec review. I mean, they still have the high bar for resilience, no doubt about it, but they have to go more. And the teamwork has always been like, security guys are blocking everything, to harmony.
Well, yeah, and Kara's big kind of, Kara's phenomenal, by the way. She's a very young security leader, and her big thing was, it's not no, it's I can't say yes yet, let's get to yes. And it's such a mindset shift, but I think because everything's a security problem now, if we can't do that, people will just work around security. Like, I have kids, right? If I don't, my kids are already figuring out how to hack their way around my security controls on their devices. So if I work with them to establish, get them to buy into those boundaries, it's better. So I think, the being able to form better partnerships within the organization and to demonstrate shared fate, right? Because if the security team doesn't win now, it used to be like, oh, your network might go down, or, now it's like, if security doesn't win, it could be existential for the company.
Yeah, as an industry, we spent so many years saying no, building enemies, and it has been a mind shift the last several years to being a really collaborative partner. And there's a lot of teams out there doing it really well and have that mindset of like, we have customers and we need to have partnerships and internal stakeholders. And I think it's just so important, the speed at which we're moving with technology and with digital transformation, like security teams can't afford to say no anymore.
I want to get your thoughts on something that just made me think of the whole vibe thing and the data security. Here at the show, a big focus we've heard is data security. You mentioned data sources. You'll build a connector if you need it. So you guys have built that context and unifying that. How do you control the data? Because the big conversation is, okay, I need to look at everything. And if I need to look at everything, then the bad guy can look at everything. So there's like, okay, how do you guys look at the context of that piece of it? Because that's a big part of what you guys are doing. The data control plane. I mean, there's all kinds of harmonization layers. I mean, there's a zillion people trying to talk about this and solve this data security, source of the data. What's your view on that?
Well, first of all, it starts with like intelligence, right? It starts with knowing what you have. And my approach as a CISO was always really, I thought very simplistic. I would go in and I would say, okay, what do we have? Like, what are the assets? What do we not know about? What is the software we're using? Really sort of simplistic questions to try and answer that are super hard to answer, actually.
Yeah.
And boards, it's usually the first question. There's no worse question, I don't think, that you could be asked from a board than, are we good?
Never good, right? Always
I
a
had that
no.
question. I would have it.
Good.
By good you mean, but being able to go back to them and say, well, let me explain, what we've done to mature our capabilities. We started with 75% visibility. We had pockets of unknown out there. Over the last 2 years, we've built that visibility to 96% of our environment. That's a really tangible metric that security teams can give to leaders, and leaders feel really good about. And then from there, you can start to say, and now that we have this visibility, here's what we're doing.
Yeah.
So with data protection, or really any kind of protection or resiliency, for me, it just starts with visibility and intelligence.
All right, so I have to ask the follow-up on that, because when we were riffing day one with John Olsick and talking about, hey, every new wave there's always shadow something. Wi-Fi came in, iPhones, shadow IT. Is there a shadow problem with AI? Because you're starting to see that piece, and how are people in your community thinking about this? Because it is contextually a consumer product. There's a lot of shadow AI going on, sneaking in. I mean, LLMs, again, a whole nother discussion, but what is there's always a pretext to the trend, which is, if it's not shadowing, it's not going to happen. So we saw that in a lot of these big waves. What's your view on what are people talking about? How to rein in the chaos or let it run? I don't know what to say.
I think it's rein in the chaos, but let it run. Almost kind of what you said is, I don't think we're going to solve this problem, nor should we try and solve the problem of let's eradicate shadow IT, period. I think it's how do we feel comfortable with the shadow IT that's taking place? How do we expose some light to it, maybe bring it in a managed way, or at least have comfort that it's being ran in an intelligent, safe way. That's my personal opinion on that. I think, is there shadow AI? I would have to say, yeah, there's a lot. I don't have any studies to support that, but
the general sentiment is.
I mean, that's the beauty of the cloud and the peril of the cloud, is that you can spin up an S3 bucket or spin up a Snowflake database in 10 seconds. And obviously, it's not the policies that are usually the problem, it's the procedures that enforce the policies. And so if you don't know that somebody in your sales team just spun up a bucket and dumped a bunch of customer data into it, it's really hard to protect that data.
This is a big debate. Old school, you'd say, kill it.
Yeah.
Okay, the new school is, it's innovation signaling.
Yeah.
Right, so it's a feature, not a bug, but you got to look at it, don't ignore it, but embrace it, run to it, I think, right?
Yeah, I think the let's kill that process has led us to some really bad behavior, which is causing, they're going to find ways to work around.
Why people are circumventing you, yeah.
So again, how do we embrace it? How do we bring it into the fold and support it? Yeah. I think what are CISOs worried about with AI? I think they're all over the map. I think they have lots of concerns, whether it's, what AI tools are being used, what freemium sort of accounts are being created, and our company information might be exposed in those freemium AI solutions. What is the prompt engineering security, the output of the prompt? How do we secure that? So we've not settled on kind of the framework yet of what should we really focus on? What's the most important aspect that we need to be concerned about to secure AI?
I'm just curious, what's your job like? Because product strategist, you have the keys to the kingdom, product strategy, you're playing 3D chess in a market that's evolving. What are some of the things you work on? Take us through a day in the life of what you do, because you got to look at the landscape, you got to understand what Axonius brings to them, you got to work with customers. Share a story, what's the coolest thing you're working on? What's the day in the life? Shed some light into kind of what's going on in your world.
Why I was drawn to the role with Axonius was it keeps me connected to the cyber industry, the CISO community. So I spend a lot of my time talking with our customers, and our customers really like us. I mean, I was a very happy customer, and I hear that a lot, but I also want to know what's not working. I want the bad news. And so I spend a lot of time talking with customers on not just feature enhancements, but where's the industry going? What do they want to see from us? We want to meet them ahead of where they're going, so they're not waiting on us to get there. And so my job is really to guide the future of the product to meet the needs of CISOs and security
What are
teams.
some of the things customers are saying? They're like, hey man, I love it, my life changed, I got the weekend back, or what are some of the, what's some of the comments that you hear from the customers that like what's going on with you guys? What's the vibe?
Last night we were at dinner and I had a CISO come up and said, I love your tech. And it was just out of nowhere, like, I love your tech. And it's great to hear that. I think truly the visibility that it gives them, and I hear people describe Axonius as, oh, you're an aggregator. And I'm like, no, that's not what we do, right? So we really expose what's happening in your environment in a really intelligent way, and once customers use that, they want more of it, and that's why we start to see this, hey, how can I connect this? How can I connect this into Axonius? And Axonius becomes truly this hub, and I never want to say single pane of glass because we've said that for 20 years in cyber, Jackie.
I said yesterday if somebody said it again, I would throw them through one.
What, single choke the throat? That's
I
another
literally
one.
said if somebody says single pane of glass again, I will throw you through one.
Single throat the choke is another one.
I never want to say that because we've heard it for so long, but it really is becoming kind of this central hub to take action on your environment.
I mean, I think the mission control vibe of like, you got to see things and not let someone just sneak in and get full access to everything in the network has come up, but you got to control the data. I mean, that's a big part of it.
Can't protect what you can't see.
Yeah.
That point, I make that point is at its most basic level, every executive or board member knows that. And that's usually what they'll say is like, when they say, are we good? What do we not know about? Because we can't protect what we don't know about. And so that was always the question I would try and ask or try and answer for them is, hey, we feel really good we know about a lot of things. We're still not perfect. We still have work to do, but we kind of know everything in our environment.
And you got to kind of know what you don't know and kind of keep your ears open. Brian, thanks for coming on theCUBE. Congratulations on the new role. Excited to keep the conversation going. Big fan of what you guys doing. Love the context angle you guys have. And Dean, say hello to Dean for me.
I will.
Dean, if you're watching, see you next time. Thanks for coming on, appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, I'm John Furrier with Jackie McGuire here, day 4, grinding it out, and we've got tons of coverage. Check out siliconangle.com, of course. Check out thecube.net. We'll be right back.